All right, so this is finally happening, and I'm really excited, Nish.
Me too.
I love this topic. It's a topic that's very dear, and I know it's very current. There's a lot happening all around, and this is the time when we need to start asking questions. And these kind of conversations can be so rich, so fun, but also it allows us to explore things in different ways, right? Um, you and I have had this conversation so many times, and I've always loved the way you explained it. And that's why for me it's such a powerful tool to have you come here personally today, and then just kind of have walk us through gently this topic, and let's play with this and see how we can create a group learning, and maybe walk away with something that we can apply. So first of all, I want to welcome you, Nisha Jangyani, the founder of Mind Wellness. She's also my partner in Mindfully You. Say hi to Rick over there. Uh,
Hello.
and for those who don't know me, I'm Rajiv Daswani, and I'm the founder of Rajiv Daswani Happiness Coaching Center. And it's really a great topic today. We're going to be talking about the 5 myths of well-being, mental well-being, right, Nish?
Yes. All
So,
right. So yeah, thanks, Rajiv. Thanks for the introduction. I 100% agree with you. Thanks for having this conversation today because if you've been watching my social media as well recently, we have been highlighting and speaking a lot about mental health, about speaking to a professional and why that is important. So we're going to get into a little bit of that today. Talk about some of the common myths, misconceptions that might stop people from seeking help actually when they do need it. So this is a conversation I've been very excited about. And I think, yes, let's do this. Let's get into it and let's talk about mental health. I like that you actually mentioned well-being in the beginning. That I think is a very important, I'm glad you used that term because the mental health space is always been seen as one where you're in some sort of crisis or you have some sort of issue and that's when you're seeking help, but nobody talks about it from a proactive space or from this point of view that this is something that is related to your overall well-being. So we have our physical well-being, we also have our mental well-being. So I actually liked that choice of term, and I think it's something that we can use a little bit more so that people are not so overwhelmed or afraid when they hear the word mental health. So yeah.
so what I love, Nisha, about that comment is that there's, I'm not, I do know that, of course, when you're dealing with challenges, at that point in time, you need to address them, right? But then there's also a segment that, can proactively start working on things so that they start, you know, um, at least moving in the right direction, right? So I got so much from you from our last conversation. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and then you can kind of play with this, and let's just take this as it
Sure.
flows. So let's start with the first thing you addressed, because you mentioned stigma. And so from a layman's point of view, right? And when an ordinary person, when we think about, seeking help, right? There's always that, many people feel, that concern that it's a little uncomfortable, right? And then there's always the stigma associated with it, or some people at least feel there's a stigma associated with it. So let's address that stigma. Let's start with
Sure.
that.
Sure. So one of the, common stigma, unfortunately, it's something that has been experienced for such a long time, is people feel like there is something wrong with them. That, if you sort of go to a professional or if you turn to someone and say, I need help, it's it's a stigma that's been carried on for a very long time. People think that it's, you have like a serious mental issue, that you're mentally unstable, or there is this feeling that in some ways you're inadequate, you're unable to deal with your own problems. So these are common misconceptions that are tagged to the word mental health or to the act of seeking help from a professional. So this is something I wanted to talk about because I feel that right now this is the main reason. So there is a statistic that from the recent World Health Organization study that says that 2 in 3 people who have mental health issues will actually not end up seeking help. You know,
Wow, that's
there
scary.
there are a lot of people who have issues who will not end up seeking help, and the stigmas is one of the main reasons why.
Yeah.
And it's a pressing concern right now. So I feel that it is important that we talk about it to let people know that number one, it's not that there is something wrong with you. I'll give you an analogy, okay? So we don't do this to our physical health. Tomorrow, let's say you have a problem, your kidney starts hurting, yeah, and you tell yourself, no, 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 I'm not going to see a doctor because oh, my doctor said I'm supposed to be strong. So what if my kidney is hurting a little bit? I will only go to my doctor when I am in excruciating pain and when I'm pretty sure I have kidney failure.
Wow, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Does that make any sense? Would you do that to your own physical health? No, you
And
wouldn't.
yet what I'm hearing is that unfortunately, because of this thought process, many people just go, listen, I'm just going to put that off. I'm not going to, yeah. And when in reality, if you just proactively started to take care of it, then, you've realized that support is available, is what I'm hearing. Is that right?
Absolutely. And also, the other misconception is that you can only see a professional if you're in some kind of crisis or disorder, experiencing some kind of disorder. And it's very important to, definitely very important to, please, I would make this appeal that if you are in some kind of state like this, do speak to a professional. But that is not the only time you speak to a professional. And that's what we'll get into in just a minute. But coming back to these stigmas and misconceptions, I think this is where we need to realize that, especially now, the times that we're in right now, um, it is important to look at this differently because we're experiencing a lot of things collectively at this very moment that does put, in fact, most of us in this space to need to take a proactive approach to our mental well-being. Because if we don't right now, collectively where the world is going and with the extreme pace of change that we're experiencing, if we're not careful and building our resiliency now, we can be heading down to the root of problems. And I don't want to say that to sound, oh, this is a very negative thing, and we have to be careful and worried. No, actually, more from look at it in a different way.
Yeah.
The more resilient we are, the more we work on our resiliency now.
I do believe
What that
Yeah,
will
absolutely.
do is, everyone talks about this in the business world, in the working world, in any other space, and it's about actually staying ahead of the game. So if you're doing that in your work, why not? Why aren't you doing that as a person? In fact, if you become proactive in this space, it will put you a leg above people around you. It will
Yeah.
give you the advantage of being able to bounce back stronger. You will be able to handle difficult situations better. And I think the second thing also is, in our cultures, in Asian cultures, it's also about helping our family and other people. So it also puts us in a better position to show up for our loved ones. So that
Brilliant.
is
I like
also
that.
another way of thinking about it, is that the more we build up our resiliency, the better we're able to show up for others.
I love that. In fact, let's just acknowledge it for a second. I like how you don't only address it for yourself, which is really important, but you also say it enables us to be more resilient, to even show up for others, right?
Yeah.
And to show up for those that are counting on us too. I love that. So it takes me, and Nisha, I love how you explain this, because it's kind of for me to understand. I'm like, this kind of makes sense. And
Right.
so yeah, absolutely, right? Because it can be very frightening a topic sometimes for many people, because we always think it's such a big topic.
Yeah.
But if we can break it down slowly. So now here's the next question. When do I seek help? Or for the person who says, okay, so now I've decided, okay, listen, I can deal with this. I want to go seek help. Does that make any sense? When do I seek help? Would that be an appropriate question to ask?
100% an appropriate question. So I will revisit what I mentioned earlier, and I think this is a very important point at the top of our conversation, is the very clear-cut scenario where you do seek help is when you're in some kind of crisis, where because of some kind of external event or internally as well, you're finding yourself unable to function in one or more aspects of your life. If you're really struggling and overwhelmed at this point, and also, in alignment with this, sometimes you could be experiencing physical symptoms, things like panic attacks, certain aches and pains. These are scenarios where definitely you should be seeking some help. And sometimes people are like, oh, I may not have a psychiatrist nearby, or I don't know the number of my nearest psychiatrist. I don't know what to do. Uh, you can actually go to the doctor and seek help from them, because if you do need a specific kind of mental health professional, they can actually make a referral for you. Or if immediately you need some kind of medication or help, they can provide that for you. In some
Nice.
extreme situation, if that's not available, you can even walk into a hospital, because they do have facilities to help you make a referral, or or to send you to the nearest and next best professional. So do seek help when you do feel that the situation is definitely out of your control. That is a given, and this I think is important to know, that don't worry about it. You can actually speak to a number of professionals. As long as you make the attempt to seek out the help, they will be able to definitely guide you to an appropriate professional. Because I'll give you an example. Say if someone did come to me, but I felt, and I'm a professional counselor, by the way. But if someone came to me and they were having physical symptoms, or they were having some cognitive related issues, they were not able to function properly or struggling, I would still then refer them to an
Right.
appropriate psychologist or psychiatrist to seek further help should they need that, so they can settle that issue first before they, engage in any kind of therapeutic process. So don't.
So Nish, just so I can summarize what you said and just to
Yes.
understand this. So when you said, so obviously you need to seek help when anxiety and you're disconnected, confused, and you feel this is a time you need to really check in with someone. I understand that. Are there other times too that
Yes.
and yes, could you expand on that too, just so we
I
can get a
will.
little.
I
Okay.
will. I was just coming to that. I know
Awesome.
that that's been a part of our conversation for some time.
It
So
has.
yes. So definitely the first scenario is if you need the help. Why I highlighted that was simply because that group
Gotcha.
also does not end up seeking help sometimes. And I do encourage that, because one small point before we move forward is, in that situation also, if you do not end up seeking help, then the consequences can also be quite severe, and that's not something. That's not a place I would wish to have people. Sorry, that's not a place I would wish on anyone. So please do
Of
seek help when
course.
necessary.
Of course.
Secondly, coming back to your question, which is, are there other scenarios where you should be speaking to a professional or seeking help? Yeah, sure. Look, if you are overall okay, if there's one specific aspect of your life that you're finding difficulty in, or say, for example, relatively okay, but you're facing some kind of confusion about maybe what to do next, or how to map your life moving forward, actually speaking to a professional from that place. Or, suppose that you're overall okay, but you really had one specific issue. Say it's around a particular pattern of behavior or habit that you've been struggling with, and everything else is okay, but it's just one thing. If you seek out help for issues like this as they crop up earlier, then what you're doing is you're putting yourself in a much better position to handle other issues when they come forward. This is where I talk about
Nice.
building resiliency, because when you learn how to deal with one specific issue, then you're able to better apply those processes to other aspects of your life.
Yeah.
Number
Makes
two,
sense.
also speaking to a professional does one brilliant thing. It allows you to process what you're going through. So this is, I think, another very important point, Raji. We sometimes feel that, oh, I'll just talk to a friend, or I'll talk to a family member. But sometimes a friend or family member, well meaning as they are, they're unable to maybe be objective, which is a very important point, and also hold a safe space. Now you might be wondering, oh, but I have, my family members or my loved one. What do you mean by this? What I'm saying is, when you're related to someone, staying completely objective and non-judgmental is a difficult thing to do. Just because by virtue of having history with them. When you speak to a professional and when you're in conversation with them, they create a safe space so that you feel comfortable talking and processing about everything that's going on for you, with the knowing that you will not be judged. You'll not be
Right.
seen as that less than feeling for maybe someone that you care about. So that space is something quite unique, and speaking to a professional can actually help with that. So these are
I
the
like
two
that.
areas that I
I
wanted
like that.
to highlight. Yeah.
And I keep on slowing you down because there's so much wealth in what you're saying. I'm
I
trying to
know,
understand it.
I know. Yes.
But I love what you're saying, because even as coaches, when you hold the space and you allow someone to self-solution, you slow things down and you allow them to look at the option of the table. And what I'm hearing is that even when you when you proactively meet, say, a therapist or a counselor, you can also work in that direction where you're working on something small, but you're working and you're moving it forward. There's a brilliant question, and I want to ask you this. What if you have someone you know or a friend who you think would probably need some sort of help? How should you suggest it? I mean, sometimes it's not for yourself, it's maybe for someone else. Is there a gentle way to ask, to kind of suggest, so that you don't sound condescending or judgmental, right? But your idea is just, intention is just to help someone. How best could you approach that?
So this is where actually that when you talk to someone, when there is and they need some kind of help, they're immediately saying, hey, you know what, I think you need help. This direct approach to doing that, well-meaning as it might be, can actually put someone off from doing that. So actually a gentler way to do this is, as an individual first, hold the space for them. When I say hold the space, all I just mean is listen to them, ask them questions. And you would try to ask questions that kind of head them in that direction. So maybe try and find out, are they struggling with something? Do they feel like they need some help? And you don't have to be, oh, do you need to speak to a professional? Do you need some help? So you go there gradually. Do you need some help? Do you feel it's difficult? I may not, and if someone's starting to talk to you and you start to realize that it's deeper, you might even be able to say that, hey, I want to help you and I may be able to help you to this point, but I think maybe I may not be able to answer all of your questions or solve all of your problems. This is what a well-meaning friend or family member might also genuinely feel, that I can't solve this person's problem. So that is when you can say, hey, I may not be able to help, but maybe if you speak to someone, they might be able to help. Nice. And if you want to encourage them, let them know that, you know what, I think it's something that would be amazing for you. We need to have this kind of dialogue. It would be something amazing for you. It can actually be, very helpful, and it can, make you come out of this stronger, more resilient, and better able to handle anything else in life. So if we talk about it in a positive and a motivational way, I think we can really change the conversation.
So I like that. I like that answer. And I'm, again, going to summarize it, because just so I'm taking it all in.
Yeah.
Right? So one is, what I heard you say is, obviously be there. Be there. Be the sounding person. Allow, actively listen. I mean, that's in today's world, with everything moving so fast paced, people sometimes don't listen to us, right? They're distracted. So just be there. Listen is what I heard you say. Also, you talk about encouragement and positivity, infusing some of that as you listen kindly, non-judgmentally, obviously. But another very important thing I'd like to touch here, and this is an element I'm adding, is this is why trust is so important, right? So as even in friendship, as we show vulnerability, then everybody else can also show up the same way, right? So we can allow others to feel safe, because you're like, listen, it's okay, right? And that's kind of the space that many of us need to start creating also through these deeper conversations. And even, like you said, holding the space and saying, look, I understand what's going on. From what I'm hearing you say is that there are certain challenges you're facing. This is really interesting. How do you think you could handle this? But at the same time, you can start guiding it towards, maybe there's some professional people out there who you could talk to. So what I heard you say, is that a fair summary of what you said?
Yes. So I would say that last point, yes, absolutely. And I think that is what will help people get into the direction of knowing that, should they require, especially a friend or family member, given the times that we're in, we sometimes miss important markers. And, some people are very, very good at putting up, a very, very front, and sometimes, they don't let you see the chink in their armor. So I'm going to emphasize this one specific point, is if you do see someone you notice they're struggling, be very kind, very gentle with them, and then see if you can guide that conversation towards them being able to maybe speak to more people and seek out the right guidance. So that is something for sure. And this brings me to one last point, Rajiv, about mental well-being, that it's also not just, it is about speaking to professionals. That's a very important part. But other programs and other complementary mental well-being practices that we develop for ourselves is equally important, so that we're able to maintain a good hygiene practice to hopefully be in a place where at some point down the road, we're not dependent.
I like your choice of word. You use the word hygiene.
Yeah.
Right? So mental hygiene. Yeah,
Yeah,
clever.
just
I
like
like that.
physical hygiene, because you take a shower every day, don't you? You clean your physical body.
Yet our mind
I
is flooded with stuff and
Can
thoughts,
I
and we
ask you, when was the last time you took a mental or an emotional shower? Do you get what I'm
well,
trying to say this?
yes, absolutely, absolutely. Look, I'm fortunate enough because I'm surrounded by such amazing coaches and friends like you and that continuously remind me, right? And there's so many tools that we can bring to the table. But I hear you loud, and it's true. It's not like there aren't days where we are our mind reeling with different things, and it can sometimes get overwhelming for all of us, right? And I love that choice. Mental hygiene is go out there and check in. How is it doing? What can you do to kind of work on that proactively? Brilliant. So now just moving it step by step, right? So now
Yeah.
it's so what? So we spoke about when, but how about the what? What does it look like? When you seek help? What does that help look like? Because one of the most intimidating things about anything is not knowing what you're getting into. You know what I mean? And that is
Yeah.
even more. So what do they say that what's more than a bite? I can't remember that saying. Have you heard that saying? And obviously I can't remember it. But is not knowing can be so frightening that you don't want to try something because you don't know until they
Yeah.
push you. You go, hey, this is not that bad, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what does that seeking help look like?
So I think, thanks for asking that question. A lot of people have these ideas about what speaking to a professional is like. It can seem like, it's this overwhelming process, and I have to sit there and talk about all my problems. I have to get into my deepest and darkest secrets, and I need to, just, or the other hand, I have no control over the situation. Only my therapist can fix me, and they will give me all the answers. So these are actually some common misconceptions about what speaking to a professional is actually about. So let's go into it. When you're speaking to a professional, what that does is, I'll circle back to a point I mentioned earlier. In a healthy way, what it does is it allows you to have a space for yourself where you feel safe, and when I say safe, it just means that you're comfortable enough to speak to this person, and you feel like you won't be judged for what you're about to say, which then
Right.
makes you comfortable to be honest about where you are at right now and go on that journey. It's a journey of exploration, part of this process, and you can grow from this
And
journey.
the key words, apart from the fact it's non-judgmental, obviously, is that you are part of this process. It's not that you're being studied and like you said, because that is one of the fears, right? I don't want to look like I have
Yes.
these seriously big problems,
Yeah.
and it takes it back to one thing which I'm just going to plug in right now real quick is you're not alone. There's nothing they probably have never heard
Yeah.
that they haven't heard already anyway. But the beautiful thing is when they're coming from a space of non-judgment anyway, then you feel safe. And then I love how the control comes back to you when you say, listen, if you don't feel empowered, you don't have to move it forward. You can go visit someone you resonate with.
Yeah.
Was that a nice way of turning what you said
Yes.
a little in a different perspective, but perspective of the user experience,
Yeah.
when you
Absolutely.
visit. So I love that. And I know there's a question I want to ask, and there's another question I want to ask. So I'm going to ask you one question and come back to the other question. So just kind of play with this, okay?
Go for it.
So your question, I love this one because I'm also a father, and um, so
Sure.
lately, no, lately, but there has been for a while now.
I'm looking at it.
There is a lot of there is depression and in all age groups, but we also see, I don't know if it's a growing number, but we are hearing more about teenagers that are depressed.
Yeah.
Now, one of the viewers is asking, is this, first of all, why is there maybe a growing depression in this age group, and also to add to that is, do teenagers, I mean, are they really depressed, or is this something this is something they're kind of creating within their own experience? That's the question.
Okay. So, all right. So, is there? I think. What do you think is a real reason for depression? Okay. Now, teenagers, right? It's the age at which there's a lot of exploration. It's the
Right.
age at which also they're discovering things about themselves, discovering things about the world around them. However, it can be quite terrifying to be a teenager right now, because the world around us is also not
Yeah.
as stable or normed as we were maybe when you and I were teenagers. It was a very different thing. So one is the reality that we are in right now. Second is Is it even depression or something that they just create from themselves? Now, this is an important one. For teenagers or any age group for that matter, I would avoid a generalizing statement or answer to this question because it can be very different from person to person. Now, depression is a label and a word that is extremely loosely used. People confuse the clinical word or the clinical diagnosis of depression with a person actually feeling depressed. Those are two very separate things. And I won't get into the technicalities of it at the moment, but I will circle this back to the point that I brought up earlier, is this, that it doesn't matter what we call it. We can leave that to the stage where someone goes to see a professional. But if someone is struggling, and if a teenager is struggling, or anybody in any age group is struggling, then they should feel that it is okay to find out what that is.
Yeah.
If I'm making any sense. So,
Yeah.
it's very common because in our culture, in our nomenclature, in our language, I have a colleague who says this so beautifully. We don't have a language to understand this. We just feel that, oh, okay, we're not supposed to call it anything. We're just supposed to take it and move forward and not talk about it and, not seek help. On the other extreme, people are saying, oh, people or teenagers of that age group is going out there and saying they're making too big a deal about it, and we're talking about depression and everybody is seeking professional help, etc.
Yeah.
I feel that as long as any individual in any age group is finding difficulty in some aspect of their life, speaking to someone and exploring what that is, absolutely okay. That's
I resonate with that, Nisha. I resonate with that because a lot of times, even maybe we might think, well, he's young, what problems can he have? But
exactly.
the world today, we are exposed with so many different things hitting us, right? I mean, when we were young, we didn't have social media, we didn't have all these pressures. So there's so many reasons why, individuals of any age can start to feel a little uncomfortable. And I use the word uncomfortable because it covers so many things. And I'll tell you, I'm going to bring this down to not only teenagers. I've got an 8-year-old, and sometimes you hear some of the things they say, and it makes you like, whoa, first of all, how do you know that? Right? I'm like, hey, you're smarter than I was.
Yeah.
But it also it makes me a little sad because I say that they're exposed at such a young age to so much data, so much information. And sometimes they don't have all the answers themselves yet. So if I was to add to what you said, because I love what you said, I would add, and Nisha, I'm going to say this, but I would add, just being a little more gentle, acknowledge the situation, hear them out, actively listen, as a parent or as a friend or a uncle or whatever the relationship is, actively listen, give them that importance because, you never know how you can proactively manage a situation before it becomes a complication, right? And so everything has importance, and with love, we can actually address these things. And Nish, I love that what you said, whether it's whatever the term is clinically, right? Of course, there's professional support, but if it starts with you at home first, great. That's actively listen and try to address this, in a way that you can. The minute that you feel, okay, this is, they have a lot more questions popping up, and I don't really have all the answers. This is now when you can start. And this is again what I'm rephrasing. What I'm hearing you say is when you can start to reach out and see, okay, how can I now maybe take this to the next level? There's no age limit, right?
There isn't. So that's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. One of my youngest clients, and I've been working with schools. The youngest clients I see are 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds,
Wow.
and depending on their background, where they're coming from, where they're in school, and sometimes the schooling systems that they're in, they're facing some genuine symptoms of even depression at some really young age. Now, of course, we can't classify and diagnose at that point for younger age group, but there is this sense. Sometimes it's family support or family counseling that we do to offer because support or struggle. So struggle can happen at any age for any reason. But what you said, and I will echo, is creating support and love so that we can journey with a loved one, no matter how young or how old, is where we turn this conversation around. And I'm going to add to that is that this is why mental health needs to be a broad conversation across every space, families, homes, workplaces. We need to expand this conversation.
And you know, it's interesting. We're having this conversation today, and it turns out to be World's Doctors Day, right?
Yes.
And so I paused everything just quickly to just say, you know, say thank you, because as an industry, we've seen in the last couple of months, um, I'm really grateful, you know, really, really am. And I pray every day, and I thank, with gratitude in my heart, you know, all the amazing work that, you know, all types of doctors are doing right now. Um, and professionals, you know, even like yourself, you know, that hold the space. So thank you for all these steps and opportunities that you guys create for us to also, then be able to, you know, move forward. So on Doctors Day, great. It turned out to be, I didn't realize that's it is, but it's brilliant. And so a great thank you to everyone out there and all the heroes out there in times that you know are on us right now. Okay, so we've spoken about the
I, on that
why.
note, I would like to say a small thank you
Okay,
to
yes,
my
please.
family members too, who are doctors, and also in the process of becoming doctors. And I know some dear friends who are, you know, on the front lines, regardless of where they're in their countries. So thank you so much for all your service and what you do to keep us healthy, well, and safe. And yes, my sincerest gratitude to what they do.
And
Sorry, Rajiv,
expand.
yes,
No,
go
but
ahead.
expand that. I expand that to all these professionals. You know, from all, everyone who's holding the space. Because Nisha, you see, at times like this, um, I always say everybody can hold the space in their own way, and we must be grateful for that, right? Um, and to remind ourselves, right? We take so much for granted, and it's conversations like this that invite us to quickly stop and just say, listen, you know, there is that, you know, there is that moment when you can just really with your heart say thank you, and say it sincerely, because you know that it extends to so many people who are doing the best that they can. um, okay, I'm going to challenge you now.
Sure.
I work with a lot of organizations, okay, so I understand from the individual perspective, and I think it's brilliant. But with organizations, you know, is there a way that organizations can maybe take steps to implement programs like this, or in order for them to sort of, okay, start addressing this situation at work as well?
So I feel from an organizational point of view, and I will drive this to the context we are in now,
Mm-hmm.
mental health is going to become a priority. And I'm already starting to see that when I talk to, when I speak to other business professionals as well, uh, it is starting to become now a conversation that organizations are having. And I feel the way organizations can show up at this time is to create a support system so that employees who do need to seek help are able to find the right kind of help at this time. You know, so you know, in organizations, it's very easy for them to say, okay, we're going to get a token program in for a little bit and just do our bit to show that we're, you know, that we're creating some mental health program or mental well-being program. But I feel that this has to become a bit more systemic. One is about, as leaders, becoming more aware of how you can show up with your organization, how you can reach out to your team, so that this process of seeking help, some of the points that we mentioned earlier, you know, there's some organizations out there that are taking brilliant initiatives to normalize that conversation, to do further check-ins, to create a system so that if someone is struggling, they can then be guided towards someone to speak to in confidentiality. You know, larger organizations do always have a support system where they connect or network with professional counselors or therapists. So I think that's one thing that can be done. That should be
Right.
there. And it should not be penalized in any way. So that would be very helpful. Second aspect is, so one is creating a safe and comfortable route to be able to seek help. The second would be creating programs that empower people and individuals to be able to build better practices in their daily
Right.
life. I think so. Mental wellness and health programs, they are important. They're very, very
Yes.
important. I think you know, so both have to go hand in hand. These programs like this, at this time, especially, what you're going to help your employees do is to start building better daily practices for themselves so that they are able to regulate themselves better, show up at work, and are more productive. Because
I
if
love that.
someone's stressed or overwhelmed or, you know, struggling at this time because people are in lockdown, they don't know how to handle situations, they, you know, they're being they feel like they're being pulled in all directions, it's very evident that productivity is not going to be where you want it to be. So
Absolutely.
for this to
Absolutely.
be a win-win situation for the organization as well as your employees, having a good support system that gets them the help that they need will then in turn also enable them to show up for you. So I think
So,
that
so
situation.
I'm going to summarize again because you've given us a wealth of information, and a lot of that resonate with because that's what I do too. So it's
That's
funny because
okay. Go for it.
you look at so what I heard you say is the first part is creating the resource so that organizations have put a system in place which allows people to seek help
Yes.
systematically. So it's putting a resource in place which enables more open communication where people can actually go in there and access it when they need it. So that's really important. The key here is to be able to access it when you need it and not have to go ask for it. So that's what I'm hearing. And correct me if I'm wrong. And the second part is the part that I work very hard on, and which is working on the individual so they proactively start to build with tools that enable them to reduce their stress, increase engagement, and start going within. Because that as you start to create more balance in your life, as you start to create more, you inject the tools that enable you to be more resilient, whether it's practicing mindfulness, being more aware of, emotionally aware, and start working on these kind of tools from purpose and all these different amazing tools. But these are offering them in organizations, and having them available. It actually works in parallel. It's like a hybrid. And if you can do that together, then what I'm hearing you say is this enables you to really create a really sustainable space, a space that can promote well-being overall, is what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
That is correct. And it's also going to be very crucial at this time. So I think I'm going to contextualize it to where we are right now. Because of all the changes we've been experiencing, this has, whether we are conscious of it or not, has created an impact on people. I have some friends, colleagues, even mental health professionals. None of us are immune to it. We're also finding our own ways. We're talking to people. We're talking to, we're co-regulating, speaking to other professionals, even doing work for ourselves, because it is important right now for every single person to be reflective of where they are at. And in an organizational context, providing the right kind of resources, an organization that makes that effort right now is creating a stronger bond with their employees. And that also then makes these employees want to show up for them more. So I'll circle this back to your concept in terms of being a conscious organization and having conscious leaders who actually want to cultivate that as a part of their culture.
Absolutely. I love that, Nisha. And I stop our conversation for a second here, and I know that we're live on FP.
Yes.
It's so easy to get this conversation going, right?
I know.
And I just acknowledge everyone listening. If there's questions out there, please ask us. If you have opinions, share. If there's something else you can add of value, please do, because these are the conversations that enable us to share and learn together at the same time. So I love that opportunity. So please go away and ask us as many questions as you can. And like I said, answers too. Give us answers too. Okay, help us with that. A question that I have for you, Nish. Now, you and I have come together, and this is where, I, since the day I met you, I said this is the marriage that needs to be put in place, which is looking at how you can take what you just spoke about, route number one, which is creating a systematic route for individuals and organizations to be able to have access to this. And at the same time, not wait for a problem, but to try to deal with it before it becomes a problem. And so we can start to work on stuff like this. It's from a professional from this space. Talk about that. I mean, because a lot of times the questions that people pop out is, from an organization point of view or from an individual point of view. Okay, so what does a proactive program look like? But what is that? So we've spoken about the seeking help from a therapeutical point of view. But what if it's not from that space and it's more of a proactive program like we spoke about? Talk about that.
So I think from a proactive space, what that looks like is, well-being programs in the workplace. It should create a space for people to get better awareness about where they are at right now, to help them explore their routines, their patterns, what's going on for them. And I think growing more of what's working for them and being able to identify maybe what's not working for them. I'm putting this out in very general context because I feel that there are a lot of programs that use very specific techniques, very specific tools to help you do this. But I feel that having complementary well-being programs that overall benefit people's emotional and mental hygiene. When I say hygiene, I mean things that we do on a daily basis that help us build up our mental and emotional well-being, and the capacity to be resilient is what we should be looking for. So
Yeah.
programs that basically help people on a, to better improve these daily practices, and at the same time, as what you mentioned, create a pathway. And I wanted to add to that point, it's not just about having access to it, but cultivating a conversation whereby it goes deeper and it actually encourages people to come forward and seek help and ask for help is also very important. So normalizing that conversation in the workplace is equally important. And well-being
Nisha,
programs, one moment, please. Sorry,
sorry,
I'll
yeah,
just
yeah,
get
yeah,
that.
yeah. No, you got me on something. So I'm thinking, but go.
Yeah, it's just I'll circle that through is that and well-being programs and having the presence of programs like this can be the first step in normalizing a conversation around that.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Before I forget what I was going to say,
Yes.
what I heard you say is normalize conversation, which is really, really gold, right? But one step more, and this is what really drives me, is those programs also enable people to start to habitually make changes in their mindsets and move in the
Yeah.
right direction, which is why, not from an organization point of view alone, but even from an individual, that's the difference. Is you may have first get clarity, like you said, by asking the questions and get in that space and try to ask yourself questions. But most importantly, you can also start to make transformation happen by putting practices in place that start to change things, which is a key ingredient here, right, Nisha? So
Yeah.
a lot of times, it's like taking a pill when you're not well, and then wait for the next time you're not well to take another pill, or look at ways that you can proactively create the system so that you can address it by yourself and you can move forward. Is that fair to say?
That's exactly it. It's cultivating better mental emotional hygiene on a daily basis with practices that are working for you and that are making you stronger. So it's like your pill analogy. It's like the equivalent of taking vitamins, or it's the
Right. Okay.
equivalent of being very proactive with your health, keeping your body healthy. So we do a lot to keep our body healthy. This keeps our mind and our emotional state healthy.
So Nish, I see from my AirPods as they start to make noises that it sounds like it's going to be ending very soon. All right. So I have a question for you, real quick.
Sure.
A question from a viewer.
Yes.
Do you think people can get confused between sadness and depression? And your views on that?
Yes, that's actually one of the things that does happen. So the context for it is basically what is bringing on the feelings. So is this something that is it's a long-term experience with this? Is this set on by some external event that has happened? The answer to this is that there is no one. I'd like to clarify this. There's no one generic answer to any of these questions, but I do understand that people can get confused. Now, the point is that if you are in a state of confusion, in and of itself is a sign. Speak to someone about it. See where you are at. Explore. If you feel it's something that is holding you back, if you're struggling with it, if you don't have clarity around it, then speak to a professional who can help you assess where you are at and provide you with the right kind of support. Because and this will maybe circle out our conversation in terms of myths, misconceptions, is that most people want to become very good at self-diagnosing. Oh, I have depression, I have an anxiety disorder, I have bipolar disorder. And I look at them and, sometimes I ask like, do you even understand the context? And with these labels, they get thrown around a lot, by the way. And I think it's a
Right.
problematic conversation because it can frighten some people off, or it can also make people very confused. So, what am I supposed to do? Should I be on medication right now? The answer to all of this still circles me back to speak to someone about it, because they will be able to guide you if you are ever in doubt. And it's okay. It could just be a one session where you do a check-in. If someone feels like you don't need it, they're not going to drag you out and put you on medication. We're all professionals. We will support you.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So Nish, if we can get the team to invite everyone on,
Yes.
as I know that we have 10 minutes, and then I want to get everyone's opinion, and I know we
Yes.
have some amazing guests here as well.
I know.
So
I'm going to.
So- as you do all the technical stuff, and my AirPods are like starting to beep, so I'm going, okay, I'm going to have to put on the other headphones.
Do
So
you have your okay? So you can get.
I'm
your
good.
headphones
Whenever
on.
you guys can hear me, I'm going to make that switch happen. But
Stand
hopefully in
by.
10 minutes. Yeah. Let's see.
So there's some people on the chat. There's Nathan, there's Deepika. If you're still around, do you know what? Go ahead. If you have some questions or if you have thoughts, because I have colleagues who are also, who have been very close to. We speak a lot about this topic and where we are at right now. And I think the conversation around mental health needs to become more proactive one. So I invite people who are live with us. I'm also going to appeal to the Facebook audiences. Please drop us more questions if you have any.
We can have them switch on the cameras if you all want, and join us for an open discussion real quick.
Yes.
As I know we are almost running out of time, and
yes,
one of the last
correct.
to interact. So and I know we have some amazing people on. So
I know. So I'd invite everyone in the room, whoever would like to either unmute yourself or unmute and show us your lovely faces, and let's have a chat going.
Hi. Hey.
Hello.
How are you, Rick?
How are you? I'm really good, thank you.
Nice to have you on.
Nice to see you also. Nice to meet you, Nisha.
Nice to meet you, Rick.
I really enjoyed that chat. Thank you so much. I have one question, if that's okay.
Of course.
I just thought it's this question I get asked quite a lot of how to actually approach how to approach somebody who maybe doesn't feel they need help. And I just think something that I've found, and I'm interested to see if you could validate this, is every time I ask someone a question on a positive, they answer with a negative. So if I say, what do you love about yourself? More often than not, they answer with the negative. So what I've tried to do is the opposite. With someone who I feel is struggling, I give them all the positives, the strengths, the good stuff about them in their life, and they come back with replying with all the negatives. So that helps to open up that initial conversation. Do you think that could be helpful to actually build that initial trust? Do you think that could be a useful technique?
I leave it to you guys.
Deepika, Nitin. There's some amazing friends and professionals on.
So Rick, you have a lot of people here who can answer that question with you. So.
That makes me feel nice as well. So I would love to hear some other professionals' opinions as well. But I think my take on it is yes. Creating so that's what I mean by creating a safe space, letting people know that I would try and be realist about it. So you don't want to be in a situation where someone is feeling very low and you're talking about only the only positive or upside, because then you're not connecting to where they're at. So empathy, encouragement, to let them know that it is okay for them to be where they're at, and it's okay to be maybe even confused right now and not have all the answers. That kind of comforting conversation to be like, if it's a layperson, hey, even I don't know the answer to this one, but is there a way we can find the answer? That's a very good approach, because oftentimes what I notice is that people don't want to be told what to do. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's why the conversation came up earlier. Is to say to someone, oh, you need to go to seek help, and you're doing really well, but this could help you. The problem is that people want to be felt like they can be where they're at, not to be pushed in a direction to do something else. So having a very gentle way of approaching that conversation, which is what we discussed earlier.
It's a great, I like that take, but I love the question, Rick. I love where, that actual situation, because I know it happens, so it's absolutely gold. So what I heard you say, Nish, and Rick, I don't know how that landed on you. What's your take on the answer?
I think it's amazing, and I think it helps to encourage me that because in this sort of field we've got to tread carefully and we want to make the right decisions. So I think by having a safe place for us as coaches or carers to actually discuss, just to double check and just make sure we are giving the right sort of techniques, because what you don't want to do is become part of their problem by doing the wrong thing, So I get goosebumps sometimes when I really enjoy the conversation and I just got it then. Sorry, but it does help to sort of reinforce to me as well that something that I'm quite strong about, and I'd love to. Sorry that I'm asking another quick question.
No,
absolutely.
But something that's really important for me is I believe that mental health awareness has run its course, and I do believe that it is now about taking that mental health awareness to a societal and a cultural acceptance more so,
Nice.
and also then bringing in quite quickly the mental health action and then the appreciation for it, because I feel at the minute all those four things aren't connected. And I think, what's your take on that, please?
I'm going to hand this
Let's-
one
yeah, I
to
was gonna say,
someone
yeah.
very special in this chat. Nitin, I want you to take this. So Rick, in fact, I've collaborated, it's the founder of the Institute of Clinical Hypnosis and Related Sciences out of India. They've started a brilliant initiative on doing exactly what you just said, is making this a broader conversation, making the mental health action something that we need to take right now. I'm going to let him answer this question for you, because I think he might have some very interesting tips.
So Nitin, we finally meet. Yay! All right.
Finally. So, first, hello everyone. Thank you for having me here.
Hi.
So two things, Rick. One is obviously what you're saying is correct. I personally feel that everyone is now talking about mental health. I see the number of mental practitioners, the number of motivational speakers, the number of trainers who kind of talk about mental practitioners. The number is insane. So for anyone to say that they don't understand the importance of mental health is probably not living in the same world right now. Most of us who are on social media probably know more about mental health. There's an overdose of it. The problem that we have noticed is while people are comfortable talking about mental health, they are not comfortable visiting a mental health practitioner. And that transition doesn't seem to be happening. And that's the reason why when Nisha right now spoke about it, we initiated this particular conversation where we are asking people to come out and actually make a pledge saying that if I have an emotional issue, I would visit a mental health practitioner. And we want to do it in a way in which so many people say it, and so many times they say that people start realizing that, all right, if so many people are saying it's okay to go to a mental health practitioner, maybe it's a good idea to visit a mental health practitioner. So that's the conversation that we started recently, and I hope that's going to take us where we want to. I hope that answers your question with respect to giving it a broader meaning and so on. We are also requesting, in fact, mental health practitioners now to not just talk about importance of mental health, but actually tell people that visit a mental health practitioner. And at times, that call to action seems to be missing in a lot of our videos and conversations, which probably is very important for us to make. So that's about probably what our focus is going forward.
So Nitin, I'm going to jump in for a quick sec, just because I know that we have the live going on and at the same time. So what I see happening is I'm quickly going to say we got to keep this conversation going live on Zoom, and then I think we're going to get off the other live. So I'm going to say first of all thank you to all of you stay, don't go anywhere. But I'm quickly going to say thank you to Nisha for really this amazing conversation. It's been brilliant. I can't wait to now hear Deepika's point of view. Nitin, we're going to hear much more of you. Rick, I hope that you're going to keep on throwing some great questions and give us answers too, because I know you have a lot of them. And I know Jacqueline and I have a lot of people there in the participants. I'm hoping they come on as well.
So Rajeev, I'm also going to say one thing is don't forget to let your Facebook audience know that even though this live may end, we are still going to be responding to questions. So if they still have more and they missed this, they can leave the questions in the comments and we'll all try and get back to them.
Awesome. So to all of us, if you guys all don't mind, we're going to wave to everyone and say thank you and then get them all back. So thank you all for being part of this. It's been an honor. And so I think the tech team is going to take care of that and we continue this. So Nitin, sorry.